This is not the kind of video you might want to see, but if you really want to know how things work around here, I highly recommend watching it until the end. Hi, my name is Fabio, and today I'm making a video in English. This is actually my first time ever speaking English on my channel, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm an Italian YouTuber living in China, and I always make videos about my life here, which is pretty cool. But anyway, a few years ago, I made a video about learning Chinese, and in that video, I also sponsored an online platform whose name is Lingo Chinese. And hey, where are you going? Come back. No, this is not a sponsored video. Don't worry. I made a half-hour long video about that. A pretty nice online teaching platform for sure, but today I'm not gonna talk about this, so please don't be scared. The thing I wanna talk about in this video are the comments I found under that video. They really made me think a lot. Seriously, it's been 4 years, and they are the main reason why we are here today. I'm not kidding. So, speaking of those comments, some of them were good. Oh, Fabio, this is an awesome website. That's all I ever needed. The teachers are fantastic. Thank you so much. And so on. However, some other people said, isn't there an Italian version? Can the teacher speak Italian? I don't understand English. And I was like, what the? I was literally blown away. Seriously. This made me realize two things. The first one is that in life, I should never take anything for granted. Before making that video, I was certain that those interested in the platform were proficient in English. I mean, if you want to learn one of the most difficult languages in the world, shouldn't you already have a basic knowledge of English? Clearly, I was mistaken. And the second thing I realized is that many people are making a big mistake, which is attempting to learn Chinese without understanding basic English. Now, some of you might say, but why? I mean, I'm going to China, not the UK. Why on earth should I study English? I just need to learn Mandarin, that's all. Well, in this video, I'm gonna tell you why you should prioritize your English before even attempting to study Chinese. Unless you're an English native speaker, of course. In that case, well, you're very lucky, just so you know. Before starting, I have to make a big disclaimer. Don't get me wrong, Chinese language is really useful. I would say helpful and important if you decide to live here. It can also bring a lot of opportunities. I'm a Chinese speaker myself, and I can guarantee you that the life here is much easier if you can speak Mandarin. That's for sure. I cannot deny it. However, today I want you to think the other way around, and I'm gonna tell you why English is as important as Chinese, sometimes even more important, if you're a foreigner living and working in China. Reason number one, English will make your Chinese learning faster. Not to sound too cliche, but hey, look around you. The whole world is speaking English. Over 60% of the internet content is in English. Nearly 90% of the scientific papers are published in English. Today, English is the official language of science, business, finance, aviation, navigation, ITC, and the list goes on and on. Anyway, today I'm not here to bore you, so I'll go straight to the point. No matter which language you're speaking or learning, if you don't understand English, chances are that you will be isolated from the rest of the world. Think about it. All the best resources out there to learn pretty much anything, including Chinese, are in English. Personally, I think that the best textbooks and YouTube channels for learning Chinese are in English, and that's normal. It's just a matter of numbers. I mean, the market is bigger and therefore the supply is richer. That's it. Yes, I have a degree in business and economic science. Even online translators work better if you use English as intermediary language. So, what I'm trying to say is that if you learn English first, not only will you have more experience in learning a language before facing a big monster, But you will also have access to more and better resources and tools for learning Chinese. And this applies not only to learning Chinese, but to everything else in the world. Even among my Chinese students here, I can clearly notice that they can learn Italian better and faster if they have already mastered English language. I can assure that there's a huge correlation between their English proficiency and their success in learning Italian. Sooner or later, I should publish a scientific paper about this. And I'll do it in English, of course. Reason number 2. You will be required to speak English at work. Let's say you want to come here and stay for the long term, to live and work in China. I mean, we all need to work, right? How do you pay your bills? You want to enter the Chinese job market, right? Well, before doing that, ask yourself this simple question. What can I bring to them? Why should a Chinese employer choose me over a local candidate? Is it just because I can speak a little Chinese and have some knowledge of the culture? I'm sorry to tell you, but there are over 1 billion people here who are probably better at it than you are. So here's the hard truth. You will be paid only because you bring something they don't have, and it has to be something they really need. In most cases, that something has to do with your international perspective and, more specifically, your foreign language ability. Do you think I'm lying? Well, just go and check on the most popular job searching platforms for experts out there and see what Chinese employers are looking for when hiring foreigners. English, English, and English. And I'm not just talking about classic English teaching jobs, which you can find pretty much everywhere these days. Unfortunately, they are no longer available for non-native speakers. I'm talking about the vast majority of jobs that foreigners can do. Managers, engineers, designers, teachers, teachers of subjects other than English, and so on. They all require a decent level of English. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, I can just work with my native language. Let's say Italian, German, French, Russian, Portuguese, whatever. In that case, I only need Chinese, not English, right? Well, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's rarer than you might think. Just take a look at some job offers that seek Italian speakers. The main requirement is obviously that you are Italian, but then you also see English as a mandatory requirement and Chinese as just a bonus, nothing more. Even in my case, as an Italian teacher, I give my Italian classes in Italian, but then from time to time, I also have to participate in other school activities. And basically they ask me to give my presentation or my speech in English. And every time they explicitly tell me not to say a single word in Chinese. Why? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's not cool. But that's what happens most of the time. According to a 2023 academic paper by Yang Ni and Letizia Volini, the most commonly used language in work environments for Italian people working in China is English, in more than 57% of cases. Chinese comes second, 27%, while Italian is only used in 13% of cases. So, based on their study, your chances of using English in your work environment are higher than the chances of using Chinese and Italian combined. Yes, if you come to China for work, you're likely to use English as the main working language, more than you might think. Even in those cases where English is not the main language of your working environment, like in my case, it's still a basic requirement, and you are expected to speak it at least decently. So, from a professional perspective, if you learn Chinese without being able to speak English fluently, it's like putting the cherry on top, but forgetting a very important thing, the cake. Reason number 3. If you speak English, you will have more friends. At this point, you're probably thinking, alright, I'll stick to English at work, but when I'm with my friends, I speak only Chinese. After all, they are Chinese, aren't they? Well, yeah. If you're nice and pleasant to be around, chances are that you will have some Chinese friends during your life in China. But in most cases, those Chinese friends are actually people who want to improve their English and explore the foreign world. They want to be with you not just because you speak Chinese, but because you're a foreigner and can speak English. Of course, I'm not saying that all the people you meet here will be like that, but let's say this is true for most of them. When I was a student at my Chinese university, most of the people I met on campus tried to approach me in English at first. At that time, I was really proud of my Chinese, and honestly, the first few times, I also felt, let's say, a little bit upset by the fact that they were talking to me in English instead of Chinese. And I still remember, every time I opened my mouth to speak Chinese, they were really amazed by my flawless Mandarin. And they would say, "Oh, your Chinese is so good. How did you learn it? I want to know your method. Oh, I wish my English was as good as your Chinese," and so on. You guess what? In most cases, I didn't meet them again. But I noticed on my WeChat moments that the very same people were always hanging out with other foreign students, and specifically, they were the ones who were not able to speak Chinese at all. So, from the moment I realized this, I tried to do the same. For a certain period, I tried to speak only in English, and boom, suddenly there were a lot of new friends who wanted to hang out with me every single day, always inviting me to go everywhere and do a lot of cool stuff. And now you might say, yeah, but this is not true friendship. It's not a good thing. They were only using you and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you this. They're not bad people, and there's nothing wrong with what they do. Nothing. In fact, this is exactly what you do. You want to have Chinese friends because you want to immerse yourself in the culture. You want to be their friend because they are local and you want to feel well integrated into their society. And maybe you also want to improve your Chinese, don't you? So you are exactly like them. You want to do the same thing. And I'll try to explain you this with another example. Let's say you are a student of the Chinese language and you live in a small town in your home country, so there are not Chinese people around you to practice Mandarin with. Then, one day, walking on the campus, you see an Asian student and you start thinking, wow, I want to talk to them. This is an opportunity to put into practice the language I'm studying, and it's also a good chance for me to enter the Chinese world. And you start daydreaming about the Chinese words you want to say to impress this person. You finally overcome your fears and you go over to talk to them. You say, 你好，我是大卫，很高兴认识你. But then the answer you get is, sorry, I don't speak Chinese. I'm from Vietnam. How would you really feel in that moment? Would you still want to hang out with this person? Yeah, maybe. I mean, if this person is a pretty girl or a really cool guy, then why not? But trust me, in most cases, this is not gonna happen. You want to learn Chinese and immerse yourself in Chinese culture and society. But let me tell you this, friendship is not just about taking, it's also about giving. At least at the beginning, especially when you are an adult. So, you have to accept as a foreigner that most of the people who want to be your friends in China are primarily interested in your foreign identity and the language you speak, which in most cases is English. In a way, you're lucky, because many people in China still assume that all foreigners speak English fluently, especially if you're Western and Caucasian. They'll expect your English to be perfect. So, don't let them down. Otherwise, you might end up like the Vietnamese guy I mentioned earlier. So, the moral of this story. Being able to speak Chinese is still very useful, and you should learn this language if you want to live in China. It's a great advantage if you want to stay here for the long run and fully understand the culture and the people. I wouldn't have met my wife if I hadn't been able to speak Chinese back then. And every time I go to the countryside to see her family, I have to speak in Chinese to communicate with them. Even in the city, when I go to the food shop or when I buy a ticket at the movie theater, I still have to do it in Chinese, otherwise they won't understand me. However, in your daily life in China as a foreigner, you will find out that sometimes, yeah, not always, but let's just say sometimes, it's easier to build stable relationships when you accept to speak in English with certain people. That being said, both languages are important if you plan to live here, so you should study both. What I want to say in this video is, you don't have to neglect your English just because you plan to live in China. On the contrary, English might be more helpful than you might think when it comes to finding a job, making friends, and even learning Chinese. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please smash the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos about my life in China. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Goodbye!
Goodbye.
Yeah, sure.